different. Definitely had some tricks up its sleeve, though, from what we saw of it yesterday.
Yeah, I think the mind games are going to be pretty intense this time around because, I mean, it's one thing to be in Top Cut playing against opponents that have done as well as you have, but then to play the same match, essentially, as you had to yesterday all over again. Your opponent knowing your moves, you knowing your opponent's moves. The mind games are going to be pretty intense. Just to remind you all at home, Robert is running a team of Tapu Koko, Kartana, Tapu Fini, Arcanine, Gigalith, and Porygon 2. And KAZUKI is running that team of Koko, Snorlax, Arcanine, Garchomp, Celesteela, and my personal favorite, not biased, Mimikyu.
Yeah, Mimikyu is a bit of a fan favorite on this whole stream, I think it's fair to say. But it's one of those Pokemon that has ebbed and flowed in its usage overall. If it comes to the party, it does really, really well, and we see it in this lead, partnered with that ever-popular Snorlax. Robert going with something that's been a little more standard, Arcanine, Tapu Fini.
Absolutely. Not too surprising leads, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the Trick Room mode over here is pretty strong for KAZUKI. Of course, you know, Robert also has an answer to that with Porygon 2 and Gigalith. So again, these mind games are kind of going to be happening here. We're going to see Arcanine get that Misty Seed boost, that Misty Seed boost that we've seen a couple times already. So we may be seeing a thieving Arcanine perchance.
Well, we may do, but it may just be kind of an indication of exactly how these teams have been playing out. Getting that boost up, very, very important on the Arcanine. But these players moving quickly, comfortable in the matchup.
Absolutely. Tapu Fini getting replaced for Gigalith. Gigalith's going to come out, set up sand as Snorlax goes for a protect, and we are going to have Arcanine, in fact, go and thief. Try to thief that Snorlax, but it doesn't work because of the protect. I think KAZUKI kind of saw that coming as it sets up a Trick Room with Mimikyu, and now that Gigalith is in a pretty decent position, I think good switch by Robert.
I think that's a very smart switch from Robert, knowing the Trick Room's coming with this Mimikyu-Snorlax combination. Getting your Gigalith in is always really good. Obviously, it's one of those Pokemon that's able to capitalize on it so easily, and obviously the Arcanine now puts so much pressure down on the Snorlax. If you can't readily knock it out, then you're going to get thieved, and with the Snorlax relying so heavily on that berry, as I think we've seen before, that's a big thing. If you remove that berry from play, like knockoff, you're not able to recycle it, and then you're struck with essentially a dead move slot if you've been using recycle.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult, I think, to be cautious.
Arcanine going for an extreme speed onto the Snorlax, just trying to get off damage perhaps, and we're going to see our first Z move. It is that Rockmium Z, that Continental Crush that has been ever popular this entire weekend. Not surprising on this team. This entire team has actually been pretty popular all weekend. And Gigalith is going to go ahead and raise up an entire continent and crush that Snorlax. The question is, will Snorlax survive the hit? It will, and it'll have a chance to get that Eye of Papa Berry and have a little snack, but not until after it belly drums. So Snorlax now as strong as it could possibly be, but with little HP left to boot, and Sandstorm is going to whittle it down even further.
Well, that's a very, I think, interesting turn. A number of plays from KAZUKI that are certainly questionable there. Of course, you know you're going to be taking a lot of damage from the Gigalith, and the Arcanine using the extreme speed, trying to get it in range. Now, he does manage to take both the Z move, the Continental Crush, and the extreme speed, and reactivate the berry, so he stays around, but immediately using Belly Drum, he puts himself in such a precarious position right now. The Mimikyu as well, going for the Will-O-Wisp, forgetting about the effects of Misty Terrain, are really not good for KAZUKI here.
No, Snorlax going to protect, not wanting to take any attack damage this turn, as Mimikyu avoids the Rock Slide from the Gigalith, and it gets ready to set up a Psych Up, so it's going to copy Snorlax's insane attack boost right now, as Arcanine fires off a Flare Blitz into Mimikyu, busting that disguise. Sorry, folks. And Mimikyu looks very sad as Snorlax just clings on. I think that may in fact be one hit point that has got left.
The Invisible Focus Sash is back. Robert playing a very smart turn there. He knows he's got the slowest Pokemon on the field in Gigalith, so he covers the Snorlax with a bit of a Rock Slide, trying to knock it out that way, and then he doubles up on that Mimikyu. He has the Rock Slide, which misses, so the Flare Blitz from Arcanine only gets the disguise, but we see KAZUKI really sticking to one strategy. I don't think he's adapting too well to what Robert's doing. Robert's really a step or two ahead. Yes, KAZUKI has got +6 attack on both of these Pokemon, but he's really going to struggle to use it. The Snorlax is so easily able to get knocked out. Now Mimikyu's disguise is busted. It's going to struggle to take 2 attacks likely from this Arcanine. Of course, it would move before the Arcanine, but the Gigalith is still going to be able to do significant damage with a Rock Slide. So if it gets some targeting wrong, maybe doesn't pick off those priority targets, Robert could really walk through the rest of this game with ease.
Gigalith going to Rock Slide, and it misses the Snorlax. That could be relatively huge for KAZUKI. Snorlax going for the return into the Arcanine. That is going to be enough to pick up the KO. And now Mimikyu, also boosted, is going to play rough into that Gigalith, and it is just going to barely miss that knockout. Snorlax going to take some Sandstorm damage, and that is the swan song of Snorlax, I'm afraid. Mimikyu taking a little bit of damage as well, and I believe Trick Room is still active, so that Gigalith will be moving first next turn.
Well, KAZUKI really being let off the hook there. The misses on Rock Slides in both the previous 2 turns have allowed him a little bit of an opening. He does manage to get the return on Arcanine from the Snorlax. That's absolutely huge, getting rid of that. Of course, the extreme speed was always there to try and deal with it, but we don't see that play going down. Robert not covering that option of the Rock Slide missing, and just missing it allows him to lose a Pokemon. They have traded 1 for 1 in this instance, but Trick Room's a very awkward situation here. Mimikyu wasn't taking too much damage. The Intimidate that the Arcanine he's switching it is definitely going to help against this Gigalith, but he really wants to remove Trick Room from play now. With the Pokemon that we've just seen on the field from Robert, the Porygon 2, if he gets rid of that Trick Room, he does have the option to reset it, so his Gigalith is definitely going to be a threat, and something I think that Robert really needs to focus on getting much out of before it leaves the field. That Tapu Fini is his last remaining Pokemon. That could struggle a little bit against these 2 on the field.
Yeah, Arcanine coming in, getting an Intimidate off on Porygon 2 and Gigalith. Porygon 2 probably not caring too much about that Intimidate. Gigalith, maybe a little bit. But again, Gigalith is likely going to be the fastest Pokemon under this Trick Room. So Porygon 2 is sitting pretty at full health. Mimikyu, while its attack is pretty phenomenal at this point, I don't know that it's in a good position to really utilize that.
It's going to struggle to get off those attacks with Porygon 2 and Gigalith likely moving first, so those slower Pokemon I think will be kind of dominating the next few turns for Robert, but he is going to play it a little safe for the next couple.
Smart play by Robert, withdrawing the Gigalith and replacing it with Tapu Fini, as Porygon 2 just fires off a Thunderbolt into the Mimikyu, but it is not enough to pick up the KO, as Mimikyu gets a Play Rough off onto Tapu Fini and picks up the one-hit KO. Arcanine gonna go for a Snarl, perhaps trying to weather the storm that is Porygon's special attack. So going to go ahead and lower it by 1 stage. Porygon's not going to be doing as much damage anymore, but we saw that Sandstorm actually ended that turn, and now Gigalith is free to come back in and set it up again.
Well, that was a very curious turn. I think a big decision that Robert had to make there was which he wanted to preserve. Of course, the Misty Terrain was going to end, and the Sandstorm was going to end as well. So if he switches out Gigalith, he gets to bring back the Sandstorm, which helps by boosting his special defense. But he does have the option, without the Trick Room in play actually, to potentially get burned by KAZUKI's Pokemon. We've seen Will-O-Wisp be used by this Mimikyu, and many Arcanine, I think at this tournament in particular, have been carrying that Will-O-Wisp as well. That could be a very interesting way to neuter Gigalith, so even if Porygon 2 does decide to reset the Trick Room, it's really not under threat of getting knocked out. Of course, with the +6 attack stat on Mimikyu, knocking out that Porygon is a possibility.
Gigalith going to go ahead and protect, and I think we might try and see a Trick Room set up here as a last-ditch effort for Gigalith to take control of this match. Arcanine going to Snarl, lower Porygon 2's special attack once again as Mimikyu fires off a Play Rough into the protected Gigalith, and we do in fact see a Trick Room set up. So now we've got a few turns where Gigalith is going to be reigning supreme.
Yeah, that's a very curious play, I think, from KAZUKI. Really double targeting down that Gigalith. A Snarl for a nice bit of chip damage would help, and maybe even bring it in range of another Snarl. But only going for the Porygon 2 with a Snarl and not the Play Rough, I think the Trick Room was a little bit telegraphed there. We saw, obviously Gigalith is super important. The way he preserved it in those earlier turns has led me to believe that that is his win condition, and now it's free to start attacking again.
That's exactly what it does. He gets off a big Rock Slide, not missing anything this time, taking the knockout onto Mimikyu. Sad to see, but it had to happen. Arcanine taking big damage from Rock Slide, partnered with a little bit of damage from Thunderbolt, but perhaps the bigger move is that it is now paralyzed and it gets flinched by the rock slide. So now we're going to have to fight off not only paralysis, but rock slide flinches potentially as well.
Yeah, it looks like Robert probably has this one pretty wrapped up with the Trick Room in play and the Tapu Koko as the last Pokemon remaining from KAZUKI. He's really going to struggle. I mean, we have seen the Continental Crush already used, but I think Gigalith may be able to do this. Another Rock Slide would comfortably deal with the Arcanine, and the Tapu Koko is going to struggle a little bit against maybe something like this Porygon. It is going to slowly be able to wear it down. Tapu Koko is also going to lose health very, very slowly from this Sandstorm. So all these little bits of chip damage are going to be very important.
Gigalith single targeting the Tapu Koko, getting a critical hit from that Stone Edge, taking the one-hit knockout onto Tapu Koko. As we see Porygon 2 go for an Ice Beam into the Arcanine, possibly double targeting down that Tapu Koko. Arcanine gonna chomp down on its berry, perhaps the Mago berry choice here, as it gets buffeted by sand. So getting a paralysis that turn, not super ideal for KAZUKI, but I think it's all but over now.
Yeah, I mean, the paralysis and the potential rock slide flinches means it's going to be so difficult for KAZUKI to actually move. I think his game plan has been very, very slow pace. He's always felt a little bit behind, and with these single target rock slides as well, his Gigalith is no longer intimidated. It's just to pick up the knockout and force us into game 2 very, very promptly.
Not a bad play by either player. I think KAZUKI may need to reevaluate the game plan there. There were some potential moments where, you know, he could have brought it back, targeting into certain Pokemon that Robert had on the field at that point in time. Maybe not the best targets. I think he's going to reevaluate that and, you know, do a little bit better in this game too. He's adapted very well. Again, this is his first competition.
Yeah, I definitely thought in the back end of that game, when he let the Porygon 2 Trick Room, that was so not what he needed to do, to put it honestly. He needed to stop that Porygon, and he had a +6 attack stat on his Mimikyu, so if he'd gone for an attack into the Porygon and maybe a little bit of chip damage as well, he could have been in a much better position.
Absolutely.
That was the curious turn, that he really let Porygon off the hook there. Something you just can't do with this Porygon Gigalith. I know a number of people have been saying if you have that combination, you can win games so easily.
Absolutely. Yeah, and unless there's a way for KAZUKI to stop the Trick Room, you kind of need to cut it off before it actually happens, especially for the team that he's running. Of course, you know, he has his own Trick Room response. We might see a double Trick Room to reset Trick Room. We don't know. Lots of things could happen, but definitely some big adjustments need to be made here in this game too, as these players get ready to face off in this top 4.
Well, I really liked some of the plays that Robert made there. And the curious play, I think, from KAZUKI was how dedicated he was to using the belly drum. Basically, he really, really wanted belly drum to be a thing. And even though he took the Continental Crush and Extreme Speed, then he decided to, you know, go for it anyway. It was important to his plan. He did, of course, want Mimikyu to use Psych Up and bring those boosts back. But I think in general, there's a little bit of a linear game plan. He knew what he wanted to do: set up, protect, Psych Up. And overall, a little bit concerning that he didn't make those adaptations on the fly that some other players have.
I think you kind of nailed it mid-game in Game 1 when you said he just wasn't adapting well to the situations on the field. Moving into this Game 2, I think those are adjustments that he's going to make. Now that he's got some information, perhaps he wasn't expecting the rock. Maybe that's the thing. Again, first tournament, you never know. We're going to have KAZUKI lead with Tapu Koko and Arcanine, as Robert answers with Tapu Fini and an Arcanine of his own. So lots of terrains, lots of intimidates, all kinds of things going to be happening in this first turn as we get Game 2 started.
Well, we're going to see the same combination on Robert's side. Tapu Fini and Arcanine come together to set up that terrain and give that special defense boost to Arcanine. So with that, combined with the fact Tapu Koko does not have its preferred terrain any longer, we are going to see a little bit of a struggle, I think, for Tapu Koko to do the damage. That's why many people have been running Volt Switch on it, so they can leave the field, and I think that's something that KAZUKI is almost forced into doing. Then the pressure is on Robert to capitalize on that. The Tapu Fini, pretty solid against the Arcanine on KAZUKI's side. We did see it had Snarl, which would help out a little bit, but of course Muddy Water is still going to be doing significant damage every single turn.
Yeah, Muddy Water has been really popular despite some accuracy kerfluffles, we'll call them, this season particularly. KAZUKI going to withdraw Arcanine and replace it with Mimikyu. So Mimikyu coming out onto the field as Tapu Fini leaves on Robert's side and is replaced with Porygon 2. So Trick Room answer replaced with Trick Room answer. Perhaps Tapu Koko going to Volt Switch into the Arcanine, get some repositioning off. Volt Switch, excellent answer to repositioning, getting Pokemon on the field that you feel are a little better suited for handling things. And now we're going to have Snorlax come in and replace Tapu Koko as Arcanine goes for the Thief onto Mimikyu as it breaks Mimikyu's disguise. We flop to the side there, so sad. And Arcanine's going to go ahead and take that mental alert.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a threat of taunt coming in there from KAZUKI, from Robert's side of the field on KAZUKI, but he's trying to call that Snorlax switch in again. It was very clear, the way Robert played that turn, he knew Arcanine was leaving the field. Arcanine switching out, so he brings back his own Tapu Fini, and then he makes a bit of a read. He says, you're going to switch in Snorlax for the Arcanine. Obviously the Volt Switch option was there, so it was going to be a revolving door of Pokemon regardless, but he just had to get the targeting right. But with no Trick Room set up immediately, that Thief is still a really big threat. If he thiefs that Snorlax and he goes for Belly Drum again, he's in such a similar situation to Game 1. I think KAZUKI's going to have to be very, very careful, and I'm not sure if this is the adaptation he needs. He seemed very uncomfortable with his lead, and now he's trying to claw that back.
Mimikyu is going to be withdrawn and replaced with Arcanine, trying to get some more Intimidates off, perhaps setting up a couple snarls to hinder the special attack of that Porygon 2. But Mimikyu has left. Arcanine goes for a Flare Blitz into Arcanine. No thieving right now, although I don't know that it would be able to now that it's actually holding an item. But there will be some recoil taking place onto that Arcanine as we double in. Robert doubling down on that Mimikyu slot, doing big damage to that Arcanine, and Snorlax going to be able to Belly Drum, going to be able to maximize its attack, and then enjoy a Victory Berry immediately following. So definitely a better setup on Snorlax this time around, for sure, on KAZUKI's end.
No, that's definitely helpful indeed. Being able to get that set up very comfortably is something he wants. Arcanine, of course, took a lot of damage on the way in, but I don't think it's too bad. Good call on the Thief, of course. It does use its item and then grab the new one, so that limits the options there. It's a very odd and interesting mechanic that maybe some of these players are unprepared for at this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I think we're all typically prepared for when we prep for a big tournament like this. And even riskier play by Robert by going for that switch on the Thief, possibly grabbing the incorrect item and then kind of hindering its own ability for that Arcanine to go and steal potential items later. Definitely a risky play that KAZUKI played relatively well around. Maybe it was just a wrong call, but definitely not going to be stealing any berries anytime soon unless that Arcanine gets taunted or something of the like. Porygon 2 going to be replaced with Gigalith as it comes in to set up Sand, and Arcanine going to Flare Blitz into Snorlax doing minuscule damage.
Not much.
I would qualify that as minuscule. And Arcanine setting the Snarl. Neither Pokemon really caring all that much. We're going to get some special attack drops, a little bit of chip damage. The return from Snorlax, though, is big, and it targets the Arcanine, picking up the knockout. Surprise there. KAZUKI, I think, is in a pretty decent position right now.
Yeah, KAZUKI seems to have a bit of an upper hand here, and without the Trick Room, funnily enough, Snorlax is going to be quicker than this Gigalith. So maybe if a double target comes out this turn, then he's going to be in a great position. We do see the Tapu Fini come back in from Robert, so wants to deal with that Arcanine as soon as possible, especially with it at this low health.
Yeah, doesn't want Arcanine to be able to snarl too much. We saw a little bit of an issue on that Porygon 2 Game 1. Not that it really made a big difference in the long run, however. But, you know, Muddy Water is definitely not something that either Pokemon necessarily wants to deal with. What the real hassle or issue here is Snorlax is on the field. It can't get withdrawn. It's got to be taken care of as soon as it possibly can. KAZUKI does have the option to withdraw Snorlax, but then it loses all those boosts. You know, it hasn't recycled yet. If we've seen recycled, I think we have, at least Yes, yesterday we did. Tapufini going for a protect, not going to take any physical damage this turn, as Gigalith also protects. A double protect by Robert. Maybe just trying to set up a scout perhaps as Arcanine snarls. No special attack drops, no chip damage, and high horsepower from Snorlax into that Gigalith. But again, nothing is going to be happening this turn except a little bit of chip damage from that Sandstorm.
Well, we are going to see, I think, Robert buying some time here, basically making sure that he gets a little bit of information, knowing that KAZUKI's focusing on that Gigalith with high horsepower may open some doors for him to try and start switching things around. If he thinks his Tapu Fini's safe because of what he saw in the turn before, then he might start throwing out, you know, the Muddy Waters, getting rid of the Arcanines, putting himself in a better position. I still think, even though the Snorlax is comfortably at +6, I don't think Robert is out of this at all. As long as Gigalith can kind of weather the storm, we have seen Gigalith take really big high horsepowers. It would be very, very close indeed, but its natural physical defense could allow that to happen, and then he may be able to retaliate with something like a Continental Crush, maybe the combination, of course, of a Muddy Water connection on Snorlax. Would also get the knockout on Arcanine. Then once all of that goes off, maybe Gigalith could do this. It's a big play and a very big ask from Robert, but certainly an option.
We see the timer go down. Flare Blitz from Arcanine into Tapu Fini. Maybe predicting a switch, perhaps. Arcanine getting a little bit of recoil, but just enough to activate its Mago Berry, and that is going to heal it up quite nicely. Tapu Fini going for a Muddy Water, not missing anything this time around. That Tapu Fini is not excited. Getting big damage on Arcanine. It survives, but it does get an accuracy drop. Snorlax taking a little bit of damage. Fires off a high horsepower into the Gigalith. It is going to knock out the Gigalith. So Gigalith is down, and Robert is back to his final two Pokemon, Tapu Fini and I believe Porygon 2.
Yeah, that's really not the drop I think he wanted. Obviously Gigalith unable to weather that storm. +6 is just too much for Gigalith to take a high horsepower from. We are going to see the Misty Terrain end, but I think these remaining two of Porygon and Tapu Fini are certainly going to struggle a little bit. Snorlax is pretty much at its leisure to just start returning things, so the only option I see for him here is consistently getting those Muddy Water accuracy drops. A very smart play from KAZUKI in that previous turn as well, to make sure he activates the berry with the recoil from Flare Blitz. Although it didn't do too much damage, he knows the exact number he needs to drop below to get that. He knows if he does any damage that turn with Flare Blitz and gets the recoil off, then he gets to activate his berry and stick around. So Snorlax does get itself set up a little bit better, and we see, I think, that early turn with the Thief prediction not going Robert's way and maybe costing him this game too.
No, it is high risk, high reward with Thief. That's definitely something that we've seen. We've seen it played to perfection, and then we've seen the other end of the spectrum where it can kind of backfire on the trainer who's using it. So definitely need some big Muddy Water hits right now. That Snorlax is not in a position to be dealt with. As Snorlax goes for a protect, and we are also going to see Arcanine go for a Snarl, trying to lower the special attack of both Porygon 2 and Tapu Fini with a little bit of damage to boot. Why not? Why not throw it in there? Muddy Water from Tapu Fini is going to connect, but only with Arcanine. Arcanine just kind of going down there, sliver by sliver of hit points, as Porygon 2 fires off an Ice Beam into the protected Snorlax.
Well, Robert's stuck with these two Pokemon for the rest of the game. They have both had their special attacks lowered, so their damage output's going to be even lower, and taking out Snorlax is usually a bit of an ask anyway. Not being able to do that now, I think, with those lowered special attacks is a bit of a problem for him. It's going to have to wear through it. Obviously, KAZUKI has those options to try and get a recycle in if he has it. He may not, though. Once we saw the protect, we've also seen Belly Drum return on high horsepower, so there's no room for recycle. But he does have a significant speed advantage. There's no real winning path for Robert to take here. If he Trick Rooms, Snorlax starts moving first. If he doesn't Trick Room, Tapu Koko now has entire control of his terrain, easily able to knock out Tapu Fini, and Snorlax should be readily able to knock out Porygon 2, so it looks like we'll be firing ourselves towards a Game 3 here.
Tapu Koko going to go ahead and fire off Thunderbolt into the Porygon 2. Interesting choice there as Tapu Fini goes for a Moonblast into the Snorlax, planning to get that single target damage. Not going to be doing a whole lot of damage, partnered with with the Thunderbolt, it is not enough to take out the Snorlax as we go into the Porygon 2. So doubling into that Porygon 2, what seemed to be a questionable play to me at first turns out to be really quite brilliant, because now Tapu Fini alone is staring down a Tapu Koko and a +6 Snorlax. So Tapu Koko probably going to be able to do enough on its own here.
Well, there we see actually the effect of that Snarl really come into play. If the Snarl hadn't hit both Tapu Fini and Porygon, I don't think there would have been a way for that Snorlax to stay around. But the lowered special attacks mean that we are going to be fired into a Game 3 here. Very well played from KAZUKI, getting a lot more value, I think, out of his team there. Not showing the Mimikyu Snorlax early basically allowed him to set it up better. He didn't get the Psych Up on Mimikyu. He didn't even bring Mimikyu back to the fore here. So overall, I think KAZUKI played that one a lot better. Planned for the end game a little bit better as well. So overall, top tier play in that one, and a Game 3 that should be very, very close.
Absolutely. So these players, I believe, actually have now played 6 times. I think they played 3 times.
This will be their 6th game.
Yeah, they played a full best of 3 yesterday. KAZUKI made some really good early switches. We saw that switch from the Arcanine into the Mimikyu. Of course, the Arcanine thieved into that Mimikyu, getting that Mental Herb. And then the Volt switch, I think, was more crucial because that allowed repositioning from Tapu Koko. So a great way for KAZUKI to get both of the Pokemon in that he wanted, in the way that he wanted to do it. So definitely a great adaptation in that game too, and I think it's all going to come down to if he can adapt again, which he seemed to do really well in game 2, and possibly even replicate to pick up a win.
No, I do think that was, he has to do something very, very similar. And it looks like the Snorlax is one of the key things to his team here. In Game 1, it came close because he managed to get the belly drum up and psych up it away to something else as well. So we got a little more bang for his buck on that one. And in Game 3, we just saw it put himself in such a good position with it. It was so difficult to take out through the assistance of Snarl. And it did, of course, recover. It doesn't stick around as long as others. We've seen belly drum and protect, but it stays around by using that protect wisely. So overall, I think we could be in for a game where Snorlax is super important to KAZUKI again.
Yeah, Snorlax, of course, able to belly drum, Mimikyu able to psych up, so absolutely very crucial to the core of KAZUKI's team. Tapu Koko and Arcanine are going to be the leads for KAZUKI, and Robert is going to lead Tapu Fini and Arcanine. So I believe Robert has led Fini and Arcanine all 3 games.
It looks like a very consistent kind of set of leads. You're almost forced into it with the way this team is built. You have the Tapu Fini that brings the Misty Terrain to activate the Misty Seed on Arcanine. So it is a little bit linear, and I think KAZUKI, curiously enough, buys into it again. Of course, he did win with this game, but maybe we're going to get the turn 1. It's a very obvious kind of mind game to play in that which slot will be which. If he's going to make that identical play with the Thief, he has to call it right again. And it's almost a coin flip if he goes to the exact same slots and calls his bluff, or if he decides to mix it up, switch around which one switches in manually as such, and which one comes in through the Volt switch. Of course, that's if he decides to repeat the play, or he could bring in something else entirely.
Arcanine going to be withdrawn on KAZUKI's end into Mimikyu, so pretty much shot for shot what happened last game so far. Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko, no Volt switch this time, trying to clear the Tapu Fini immediately, but not enough. It will be enough, however, to take Tapu Fini down to just a sliver and activate Tapu Fini's Mango Berry. As Arcanine not going for a lead this time, but the Flare Blitz into Tapu Koko. Going to do about half damage with a little bit of recoil, so Tapu Fini then following up with a Muddy Water. Going to be able to do big damage to that Tapu Koko. Not enough to knock it out, but it is enough to bring it down to just a sliver and get an accuracy drop to boot. And of course, busting Mimikyu's disguise. So kind of a similar play from KAZUKI. No Volt Switch this time, but definitely a more aggressive response from Robert.
Well, we see how essential it is to keep your terrain in play. If he still had the electric terrain up through some means, he would have got the knockout on Tapu Fini there. But Robert's position here is so strong. He's got 2 attacks onto Tapu Koko, which means he's readily able to get knocked out by the extreme speed. So he may be just allowing that to go down. If there's a target towards there, Mimikyu may be able to set up. He's not going to go for that though, and he is going to try and switch it and maybe save it for later.
Tapu Koko getting withdrawn for Snorlax, so kind of back in a similar position where we were. Gigalith coming in, setting up Sandstorm, doing Sandstormy things. The question is, has Robert called this, and will he be thieving receiving anything. Arcanine going for the extreme speed into the top of Coco slot. No thievery here as Mimikyu sets up a Trick Room. So now, although Robert does have that Gigalith in, which does very well in Trick Room, we all know that, Arcanine won't be able to thief Snorlax this turn. Snorlax will be going first, so it has the option to Belly Drum, and of course that would consume the berry, not be able to be thieved, and possibly then recycled later on.
Well, we know that he doesn't have the option to recycle it. KAZUKI has that one-time use of the berry with his set because he chose to take Protect rather than the recycle. So if he does that and gets this Belly Drum up, he may be able to very, very quickly swing momentum his way. Snorlax could Belly Drum, Mimikyu could Psych Up, but he does have to be concerned about the Gigalith here. The Gigalith has that really nasty option of course, the Continental Crush, and putting that into the mix really slows the game down a little bit.
It's going to be real interesting. That Gigalith switch was really important for Robert to make, kind of calling the Trick Room setup here. Snorlax, of course, in a relatively good position, but it gets withdrawn on KAZUKI's side and replaced with Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko's at 1 hit point, practically, ladies and gentlemen. So even if it doesn't take any damage this turn, it will be moving down to Sandstorm. Arcanine getting withdrawn for Porygon 2. Coming in, it will activate its download ability, raising its special attack by 1 stage. And now we have the Continental Crush coming into the Gigalith, perhaps a defensive switch, sacking off that the Tapu Koko in place of the Snorlax on KAZUKI. Then we are going to see who that continent is targeting in just a moment, and it turns out to be the Mimikyu. So
that could have gone a lot worse. If he'd have gone for the Snorlax and let that Tapu Koko faint for its troubles, that could have been big, but targeting the Mimikyu, I think, a fantastic play there.
Yeah, definitely an interesting play. No Snorlax, and actually Robert gets the best of both worlds as Sandstorm takes out the Tapu Koko. So, relatively speaking, a great turn for Robert. He did burn his Z move, but I think relatively speaking, it was well spent. You know, Snorlax is definitely a little bit more manageable now that its Psycho partner is gone. Arcanine and Snorlax on the field for KAZUKI. Those are his last 2 Pokemon in this game 3. Robert definitely has the Pokemon advantage at this point.
Yeah, he really does, and losing 2 Pokemon in that previous tap does mean he's going to struggle. Of course, Robert did use his Z move, but I think that's well worth it to get rid of the Mimikyu in that turn. Although Snorlax is a decent threat with high horsepower, it's only a big enough threat, in my opinion, when he has that boost from Belly Drum. Without that, it looks like Robert's in a commanding position. Gigalith going first, going to be able to throw out Rock Slides to deal with the Arcanine. Porygon's going to be able to follow up with some assistance of its own, of course, some chip damage, particularly with Thunderbolt. Now that Tapu Koko set up that terrain for it, that Thunderbolt's going to be doing surprising amounts of damage, so I'll be curious to see how this one plays out for them as we move into kind of these deciding turns.
Snorlax going for Protect, no attack damage being dealt to Snorlax this turn as Gigalith goes for a Rock Slide. It is intimidated, but Arcanine is going to Rock Attack, so doing a decent amount of damage regardless. Porygon 2 fires a Thunderbolt into the Snorlax, and Arcanine is free to Will-O-Wisp the Gigalith. So, interesting turn for KAZUKI, definitely. I was questioning the electric terrain replacing the misty terrain, but maybe that's what he wanted to burn the Gigalith. But at this point in the game, 2 versus 4 with both of KAZUKI's Pokemon down to not great health points. I don't know that Will-O-Wisp is going to pay off.
Well, both his Pokemon are carrying one of those pinch berries. We have seen the Mago Berry on his Arcanine and the Iapapa Berry on his Snorlax, so he may be playing a very slow and sluggish game. But with the damage limited from Gigalith, the Rock Slide is a spread attack, it's going to be doing a little bit less, may drop him very comfortably into those ranges to activate it. And Porygon as well, you know, isn't doing too much, especially to something, you know, like Snorlax, I think. If Arcanine manages to get some snarls down, limit the damage that Porygon 2 can do, he may be able to bring it rather close.
Stone Edge coming in, doing minuscule damage to Snorlax as it sets up the Belly Drum, just barely within range before activating that berry that it's carrying. So Snorlax gonna be full, back up to about 60% health. Great job, Snorlax. Iapapa berries are Snorlax going to take a Thunderbolt from Porygon 2, bring it down below half again as Arcanine goes for a Snarl, getting a little bit of chip damage onto the Gigalith, but most importantly, getting a little bit of damage on Porygon 2 as well as lowering that thing's special attack.
Well, we are going to see a slow game come out here from Kazuki. He's basically wearing him down with Will-O-Wisp burns, and he's wearing him down with some Snarl as well, so it's going to be slow. His Snorlax now may be able to turn up the heat a little bit here. It is low health, but he definitely has that option to pretty much start dealing big damage. Now the Gigalith's not a threat. The most important thing is that Gigalith won't do too much damage, then Snorlax will be able to start dealing damage and maybe able to start taking knockouts on this Porygon, so I think that's the most important one.
Absolutely. Kazuki's going to need to make some big plays here. Snorlax, of course, in a good position. It's not necessarily going to be the fastest thing on the field. Actually, it might outspeed that Porygon 2 and Gigalith. But Arcanine definitely still the fastest thing on the field, spreading around Will-O-Wisps, getting those Snarls, and now we're going to see some plays start to happen. Snorlax goes for a Protect, not wanting to take any damage this particular turn. Gigalith going for the Stone Edge into Arcanine, perhaps calling that Protect. Not enough to knock out the Arcanine, but it is enough to bring it down to the health point where it can munch on its Mago Berry. Thunderbolt from Porygon 2 into Snorlax as Arcanine goes for a Snarl yet again, lowering that Porygon 2 special attack. So a lot of whittling happening.
They're not even wielding anything good, not like a spinning top or a nice artisan figure for us. They're whittling down these health bars. The Trick Room does end. Gonna make life a little bit easier, I think, for Kazuki. This Arcanine now able to get those Snarls in before anything else happens. But he still needs an answer, and we see the frustration that players have with these pinch berries. Doing a little bit more damage is fine, but because he's burned, that Stone Edge doesn't take the knockout. That means the berry activates and Arcanine's still around to start snarling, so overall I think he's going to have to be careful. He's not doing much damage though.
No, he is all in on the Snarls. Porygon 2 getting a Thunderbolt off, proving that it is a little bit faster than that Snorlax. The Snorlax goes for a high horsepower, but it misses the Gigalith as Gigalith goes for the Rock Slide, targeting down both Snorlax and Arcanine, doing a little bit of damage. Most importantly, that Snorlax now is in, I believe, Thunderbolt range, but maybe not after this electric terrain dissipates.
Electric terrain's dissipated, and of course Arcanine has the option to snarl it again before it moves. There's no way, Robert does have the option, potentially if he's bought it. We have seen Tapu Fini, Arcanine, Porygon 2 and Gigalith though. No way to reset the electric terrain, so Snorlax may be given another opportunity to hit this high horsepower. The problem is, as slow paced as this game is, there's still 2 more Pokemon for Robert to use, so he may just be trying to do it with these 2, but his remaining 2 should be able to round it out, especially because it's the Tapu Fini. You've got to give credit to Kazuki though for fighting back.
Absolutely. Snorlax going to take a little bit of damage from that Thunderbolt, but it targets down the Porygon 2. Questionable attack, perhaps, from that Snorlax. Going for the Rock Slide, it will not be enough to take out that Snorlax as it hits both Arcanine and Snorlax, doing a little bit more damage to the Arcanine than the Snorlax. My goodness, this is so close. Tapu Fini coming in to replace the fallen Porygon 2 as Misty Terrain gets set up. So I'm not sure what Kazuki's going to do at this point.
No, Robert's basically played a slow game. He's allowed Kazuki to try, and when Kazuki finally gets the opportunity to knock something out, he knows he's got Tapu Fini in the back to replace it. He's just going to bring it in, hit a Muddy Water on this Arcanine. Even with a Snarl, it should be able to pick up the knockout. And as long as it connects with both, it looks like Robert is going to be moving on to the finals.
Snorlax goes for a Protect. Last-ditch effort. Snarl from Arcanine into Gigalith and Tapu Fini. Going to need to miss a lot of Rock Slides and a lot of Muddy Waters, if it even needs to, but it doesn't. It goes for the Moonblast, the single target, as Gigalith goes for the Stone Edge into the Arcanine, and that will not, sorry I left you hanging there folks, will not be enough to knock out the Arcanine. Both of these Pokemon, I think, have invisible focus sashes at this point.
Pretty much, yeah. And the most frustrating thing, and a way that Robert, if he wanted to be cheeky, could play this game, is actually just to switch out the Gigalith to bring it back in. I don't think he's going to need to do that though. Tapu Fini has a fantastic set of spread moves in Muddy Water, and it has access to Dazzling Gleam as well, but knowing that's going to happen, we are going to see Arcanine knock itself out with the Flare Blitz in this turn, and any move connecting with this Tapu Fini is on the Snorlax is going to seal the game and push Robert through to the finals.
Arcanine going down in the blaze of glory. Why not? And an excellent run by KAZUKI here. Very well played by Robert in this last game. Definitely a well-deserved win. Again, these players faced off 3 games yesterday during Swiss rounds, and now they've played 3 in the top 4 of this regional championships. Good heavens, everyone.